Sebiek from Filmster here with a feature update. This is our integrated musical endings, and I'm delighted to be able to just show you a walkthrough here and how to use them. So I'm going to start with a track called Duetto. So I'll just identify that here by searching it. I'm going to drag it into the timeline. Now the first thing we notice, of course, is that it loads up in the same manner as all of our other themes, in the sense that it automatically fills the timeline. And that's completely normal and as expected. But this little icon here, as you can see, it says toggle ending. So if we click this, what the audio engine is now going to do, it's going to calculate to the nearest possible position where to insert an ending. And what that's going to do essentially is it's going to replace the last full section of music with the ending. So as you might be able to see here, we have these very large vertical markers, and they indicate a full section. So the piece of music starts, as you'd expect, with the beginning, then it kind of has the main thrust of the piece, which is basically, quote-unquote, the middle, which is then repeated because Filmster obviously is wanting to now cover this timeline, which in our case is about 4 minutes of music here. And then we have an ending, but the ending isn't apparent yet until we do this. So we're going to toggle the ending, and I'm going to expect this last section to be too short, so the ending can't fit here. So the engine's going to calculate to start the ending around about here. So let's just see what happens. So that's exactly what it's done. So now, if your aim had been to have an ending much closer to the end of your timeline, let's say the timeline was obviously this long for a reason, it might coincide with a scene that you're working on, so you might have a video sitting here, or you already know the length of your soundtrack and therefore have created a soundtrack only timeline of a given length, then you might want this ending to be closer to the end, which is fine. So for that, you want to just use the move clip tool and then move the entire clip so that the ending is closer to the end of the timeline, which is fine. So you can do that like that. Of course, the next question is then going to be, well, hang on a minute, we have all this gap here. Well, that's fine, because we can just trim out from the left here and cover this gap. That shouldn't be a problem, and it also shouldn't interfere with the placement of the ending. So as you can see, we've just trimmed out this music to the left now. The ending is in place at the end, as we might expect. And so we've a couple of edits basically by enabling the ending and then just trimming out what was left after moving it. We've kind of basically replicated this piece of music for the same length of time, but we've put an ending in. Now, of course, those of you who are a little more shrewd in terms of the kind of musical knowledge, you've then noticed that, well, these vertical beat markers may have shifted slightly in that activity we've just carried out, which is again fine. We can correct that if we use the sync marker. So if you wanted to sync up something again, you could make some edits to this. Now this will result in the ending shifting because it only plays out a quote-unquote perfect ending from the very last full section. So watch what happens now if I let go. It's now shifted it and it's going to play the ending here. We're left with a slight empty section, which is because it had to recalculate. So it leaves the original clip underneath. That's something we're probably going to remove in the next update. But for now, if you want to just reset that, it'll obviously also go away. Now, the way to work with the endings is, again, there's a new tooltip, which is, a new cursor tool that's appeared here, and that's the move end time. So I want to just spend a minute talking about this. So the move end time is distinct from trimming because it's not destructive. So if I move the end, what I'm essentially doing is I'm pushing it to the left or right for that matter, but once I let go, it's going to automatically snap to the nearest proper musical instantiation of that ending. In other words, this music here inside of the ending is never going to be curtailed or truncated in any way. It's going to remain intact. So if I pull this out to the right, you'll notice that it'll now snap to the nearest available space. And we thought that would be good because if you really wanted to make a destructive edit to the end itself, then I would suggest you do that after you've bounced out the exported the soundtrack, and then you could do that in Audacity or Logic or whichever audio editor you want to use, or even in your NLE actually. So that's the difference between, say, trimming, which would make a which would make a destructive edit. And as you notice, this trim tool doesn't actually work. You can't trim the musical ending because we're not allowing this to be destructively altered. This ending is going to play out, maintaining the actual end of the track. So that was a lot of talking in one go. Without further ado, I'm now going to just take this down to its position here. I'll play the very intro of this track, and then I'm going to just fast forward and play the ending so you can see how nice they are and how different in some instances they are, sometimes significantly so, sometimes just, as you might expect, they just come to a close, but in a musical fashion with decent audio tails, not like a loop just ending suddenly. So we're very pleased with this. So yeah, let us know what you think in the comments. We'll be addressing any minor bugs, obviously, going forward, and I would recommend also not to use more than one track in the timeline for the time being if you're using endings. I think this is one of those times where, you know, use Filmora for what it's good for, which is working on a track with a scene. And I would again keep that probably to under 5 minutes. I don't know why you would want to have a continuous soundtrack of more than 5. I'm sure some of you may let me know. But yeah, I hope that's useful. Here is Duetto. I'm going to play it from the beginning and then show you a little bit of the ending as well. So there we are again, we come around, and now let's just listen to the ending, how that differs. So this is the same place again, as if we've just gone from here. Let's have a listen.